What is the Catholic Church's teaching on marriage? In this video, we'll consider what Revelation and the Bible tell us about marriage, what the natural moral law tells us about marriage, and what do couples intend when they marry in the Catholic Church. My name is Father Jerome Magat, and I'm the Vice Rector and an Associate Professor of Moral Theology at St. Patrick's Seminary in Menlo Park, California. And as always, if you like our content here on our channel, please feel free to like, subscribe, and share. I'm often asked about the Church's teaching on marriage, and it's important for us to be aware of what marriage is all about, where it came from, and challenges that are often offered to the Catholic vision for marriage. Marriage, as we know, is established as the definitive covenant between one man and one woman in the book of Genesis. Chapters 1 and 2 of Genesis, the first two chapters of the first book of the Bible, are the creation accounts, and both end with narratives regarding Adam and Eve and the first, what's called a natural marriage. And marriage is this institution established by God as the place where civilization and, most importantly, the cellular block of a civilization are formed, and that is the human family. When Catholics in particular marry, they have to intend three things while also enjoying the goods of marriage, which are closely aligned to them. These are permanence, fidelity, and an openness to children. Let me explain what these mean. And I'll explain them alongside the goods of marriage, because while they're at once intended by the couple when they enter into a marriage covenant, not just a contract, they are also the goods that are actually themselves experienced. So we'll start with permanence. Permanence, as you might gather from the word, means exclusivity, and it also means indissolubility. It means here that the couple is joined for life, and that what God has joined, no man must tear asunder. This means that the couple enters not into a contract, but rather into a covenant. And that's a significant difference, because in a contract, typically parties that enter into a contract, when one or both of the parties decide to end the marriage or end the contract, they can go their separate ways, and the contract ceases to exist. But biblically, in a covenant, covenants are unbreakable. And the entire Old Testament is replete with stories of covenants that God makes with his chosen people, Israel, the Jews. We think of the covenant between Abraham and God, or Noah and God, and certainly the covenant of Moses and God. There are others as well, but those are the three that come to mind immediately. Even in the Christian dispensation in Catholicism, you notice that when Jesus describes the Eucharist, and these are words repeated by the priest at the altar during the consecration of the Eucharist at Mass. He refers to the Eucharist as the new and eternal covenant, which is given for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. So the word covenant is all over the Bible, as is the word marriage, or the concept of marriage. I already mentioned the book of Genesis, chapters 1 and 2, have stories about Adam and Eve and a natural marriage. If you look at the very last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation, the Apocalypse, the highlight of that book midway through the book of Revelation is the great wedding feast of the Lamb. This is a metaphor for the consummation of the entire world at the end of time. And even notice in Jesus' public ministry, Jesus performs his first miracle at a wedding, otherwise known as the wedding feast at Cana, recorded in John chapter 2. So permanence is the first property, or the first thing that a couple must intend, the first good that the couple must intend when they enter into marriage. The second is fidelity. This is, generally speaking, for most people, the easiest to understand. Faithfulness, fidelity. And here I don't simply mean physical fidelity, but also even emotional fidelity. It's quite possible for couples who might be physically faithful to one another to have relationships or friendships outside the marriage where some sort of emotional infidelity can take place. This requires very, very careful discernment as to who is a friend and who is more than a friend. A couple has to be very, very discerning and very, very private and careful about the kinds of other relationships that they maintain in the interest of the good of the marriage. And then, of course, the last good or last thing that the couple must intend is an openness to children. It's not to say that the couple will have as many children as they possibly can physically generate. It's not even to say that the couple will have any children at all, but it is to say that they must intend to be open to the possibility of having children and not place any barriers or blocks to it. This, of course, is allied with our age-old teaching on the whole prohibition against artificial contraception. Now, to get back to the goods of marriage, the other part of marriage, that's a good of marriage, which is outside of permanence, fidelity, and an openness to children, is what's called the good of the spouses, or the permanence that both of them enjoy in this stable manner of living. Marriage is a great good for human society. It's simply not useful to bring children up in as an institution, nor is it merely a social construct, but it is precisely the design that God has for the entire created order. Again, referencing those elements in different parts of the Bible where marriage is brought out in great detail, and how marriage is an analogy, St. Paul reminds us in Ephesians chapter 5, of Christ's love for his church. Marriage is an absolutely essential and cellular unit, not only for the church, but for society at large. And this is why persons continue to seek marriage as they have throughout the entire history of man. This, of course, permanence, fidelity, and an openness to children excludes alternative forms of marriage that have been proposed in recent decades. Again, a particular couple, let's say of the same sex, could intend permanence or fidelity, but they certainly cannot be open to children, at least not naturally, even though those things could be achieved artificially, again, outside of God's design. So it's important for us in the church to be staunch defenders of God's design for marriage, not merely a sociological or social construct, but written into the very DNA of the society in which we live, in the church in which we are to prosper. If you like this content and other content we provide on this channel, please feel free to click on the links above. And as always, thanks and God bless.